California judge has ordered some pretty serious changes for that infamous Kars4Kids commercial that if you're living in the United States, you no doubt have heard over and over and over again. And it's because it turns out that the original ad, the super annoying ad, kind of hid the fact that the money wasn't gonna go where people thought it was gonna go. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the jingle I'm referring to.
1-877 Kars4Kids, K-A-R-S, Kars4Kids. 1-877 Kars4Kids, donate your car today.
You know, I gotta say, the laziness of the ad really bothers me. Right, aside from the fact that they were hiding the fact that the money was actually not going to disadvantaged kids. In fact, it was funding, well, field trips and also adult dating situations for Zionists. They should have tried harder with a better commercial, you know?
Well, it seems to have worked.
It worked.
Yeah, they raised a ton of money.
Yep.
and obviously sent it, as you're about to find out, spent it on purposes they didn't tell you about. I'll just say as a preview real quick, they said it was for young, disadvantaged American kids here in this country. They weren't young, they weren't American, they weren't disadvantaged, and it wasn't in this country.
It's crazy.
Go ahead.
It is crazy. Okay, so basically at the heart of this story is a lawsuit that should have been filed decades ago, I feel like. However, if you watch that ad, you can obviously tell that it makes it seem like the donations are gonna go toward underprivileged American kids, and in this case, to kids in California specifically, but that's actually not the case. According to its website, Kars4Kids has facilitated the donation of more than 500,000 cars. The organization also works closely with and funds another nonprofit group known as Oorah, which runs summer Orthodox camps in the tri-state area and organizes annual trips to Israel for 17 and 18-year-olds. So you are donating your car under the assumption that the funds raised through that vehicle that you've donated, again, it's gonna stay in the United States to help disadvantaged kids in the United States. No such thing is happening. The money is going to a Orthodox Jewish organization that is funding trips to Israel. But it even gets murkier and crazier than that. So let's talk about the lawsuit real quick. The case was brought against Kars4Kids by a man by the name of Bruce Oorah, and he filed this lawsuit in August of 2021. So he alleged
5 years.
Yeah, he alleged that that he donated a 2001 Volvo XC earlier that year to Kars4Kids after hearing the ad over and over on the radio. At the time, he expected his donation made in California to benefit children in California. And then he was shocked to find out that wasn't actually the case. So it was only after his donation that he learned from a neighbor that the funds were directed to a Jewish organization in New York, according to the ruling. That's not what I wanted, he said. I feel taken advantage of by the ad and information that was not there. So he testified that the ad contained nothing about specific religious affiliation, and he had a huge problem with that. He also added that although he called the organization's phone number, he never visited its website, which is the only place they specify that it's a Jewish organization. And that if that wasn't bad enough, by the way, the testimony given by the company's COO was amazing. Like, it was so insanely candid, and I appreciate the candor here. So this is Esty Landau, and Esty's testimony indicates that 25% of Kars4Kids' revenue comes from California. Of the 120,000 vehicles donated to Kars4Kids each year, about a quarter of them come from California. They have no presence in California. They're doing nothing for kids in California. And that was admitted through the testimony in the case. Whereas Oorah assumed his donation would benefit some in need, Landau said the organization's primary purpose is not to help economically disadvantaged children. So what is the purpose? With 60% of Kars4Kids' fund going to Oorah, Landau said the national charity serves as Oorah's primary financial backer, contributing upwards of $45 million to it annually. And some of that money doesn't even stay within the United States. So according to the court documents in 2022, the organization allocated $437,000 to Middle East outreach, transferred $16.5 million to North America and the Middle East, and spent $16.5 million on a building in Israel where it's working to grow its presence. I
have so many questions. First of all, I have an observation. Landau. Does that name ring a bell?
Kind of.
UC Landau. He's the guy from either Zaka or Hezbollah United, the first responder in Israel that first came up with the decapitated babies in Israel. It's the same. Maybe it's the same family.
I don't know.
Do you remember?
Totally forgot
remember
about that.
UC Landau. He's either Zaka or Hezbollah United. These are the first, and this is the guy who was like on camera. It's like, oh, I have the pictures, but you cannot show it to anybody. And he showed the picture, and the picture didn't say anything. I remember that Landau. I was like, wait a minute, I heard that name before. UC Landau. It's either Zaka or Hezbollah United.
I gotta look into that. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, then I'm sure. UC Landau. I remember the name. Second of all, I remember I used, before I came to America, I used to come to America as a student and pay my own thing. I remember like coming here like 20 more plus years, and I remember seeing that ad on television. I can't remember how long it was running, but I was like, this is such a stupid ad.
Yeah, the jingle is the worst.
Like I was a tourist. I was an Egyptian tourist. I didn't have a green card. I was just like coming here to visit. And it's been 2005 or something. It's like, wait a minute, like people donate their cars for this, and that's the most important question. This ad has been running for 20 plus years. It took a random guy who just asked his neighbor about it, and then he said, "Oh, it doesn't go." Wait a minute, where are all of the regulators? Like it just took a random. So if this guy didn't ask his neighbor, and how did this neighbor know?
There's so many scams.
What is this like a common knowledge? It's just like people are just like, oh yeah, but this is the car. They send it to Israel. How did it come to light, and why did it take a random guy just like, hey, I donated my Volvo of 2001 and it didn't go to where it's supposed to? Like, where are the regulators?
Can I just ask, like, when is it enough?
Yeah.
When is it enough? How much of our money do they need? When is it enough?
But by the way, I asked ChatGPT once, like how much money outside of the aid that goes to Israel?
A lot.
It's like billions of dollars just donations. It's even the donation that goes to Israel more than the $4.2 billion that we give each year.
Of course, yeah.
But that's, look, if people want to donate to Israel, that's their business, not my business. If you want the government to donate to Israel, then that's my business, because that's my money, right? So in terms of Kars4Kids, like to answer your question, we don't know for sure, of course, but generally speaking, what happens is if you want to regulate or hold accountable any organization connected to Israel, they'll scream bloody murder, anti-Semites, and that'll scare the living crap out of everyone, and then they get to do whatever crimes they want.
Do you know your brain rot index? No, of course you don't. I didn't either because I didn't know what it was, but turns out you might want to, especially after hearing this. Did you know that the average American checks their phone over 200 times a day? That's about 5 hours of screen time a day on just your phone. Unfortunately, that means your brain is rotting. A little bit, but have no fear. I switched over to Noble Mobile, downloaded their Noble Mobile Life app, and was able to track my own brain rot index. It's 0. No, I'm just kidding. My number was not great, but now that I'm on Noble Mobile, getting way better. It tracks how much you use your phone, how often you pick it up, and even shows you how to save money on your phone bill by using it less. New members can even earn up to $100 cash back for keeping their brain rot index under 100, which means you are very unrotten. Okay, so you unlock all that when you join. So download the Noble Mobile Life app today, track your own brain rot index, and learn how you can save money and spend more time doing things that actually bring you joy instead of doom scrolling on social media. Check it out by heading to tyt.com/switch or by downloading the Noble Mobile app. By the way, don't tell Andrew, but if you're on Wi-Fi, you also don't use your data, so you're gonna get money back anyway. tyt.com/switch.
And if you're saying, well, that's hyperbole, well, Tom Alexandrovich came here to rape our children. He's a cybersecurity official for Israel, and we let him go.
Oh, and by the way, can I say something about this? The whole thing about Nevada, this sting operation about Israel, this story was not run by a single mainstream media. It never ran on ABC, on Fox News, on MSNBC, never. It was all through podcasts, and people don't have any idea about this. And by the way,
I mentioned it on Abby Phillips' show. I was on the panel. I mentioned it. It was the craziest experience I've had on any debate show or panel show. Everyone just pretended like I didn't say it and they moved on.
Yeah, you're not allowed to talk about it.
And by the way, and I need to call it out, I was on Chris Hayes on ABC, and we talked, and I think I
MS Now.
I can't remember. It was something. I can't remember. It was Chris. I was one of those things, and then I mentioned about like Israel being like behind Epstein, and it's like, and they shut me down, and they cut it, and they never played that clip.
That's amazing.
No, because I mean, they're giant liars. I mean, Epstein is on record in the emails, especially from Dropsite News, working with Israel on every deal. Russia with Israel, Mongolia with Israel, UAE with Israel. Cybersecurity weapons he procures for Israel. And then the mainstream media goes out and goes, I think he might be Russian.
Yeah.
Okay, well then you're lying on behalf of Israel. This is not an omission. This is not an accident. You're doing it on purpose, and it's weird. So back to Kars4Kids. So they say, oh, we're basically implying that they're gonna give it to 8 to 10-year-olds here in America. I mean, look, first, it's not even a $16 million building in Israel. I mean, what an outrageous lie to pretend.
I think they're building it still for the kids.
Oh yeah, it's for the American
I'm sorry,
kids.
that's a bad joke. They're doing it for the kids, like to bring in the kids.
No.
By the way, that ad still plays. I saw someone like a user on X or on Threads, can't remember. He's like actually filming it from his series, like. This ad is still playing on television.
Wow.
Because I guarantee you that if you go state by state, there'll be somebody who works for Israel, a thug or a bought politician who will say, you're an anti-Semite, shut up, leave them alone. Who cares if they're lying and brazenly robbing Americans, thinking that they're helping young little kids. If you had a real ad, it would say, cars for Orthodox Jewish teenagers who want to hook up in Israel and get propaganda from Israel. But you don't do that. Instead, you pretend it's for us. And then you use your disgustingly corrupt politicians here in America to let you get away with this robbery.
May I ask a question? Was this Kars4Kids thing, was it run by any mainstream media outlet?
I saw it in USA Today.
Yes.
USA Today,
I
and I bet you it's gonna run once, and then they're gonna run right away. The thing is, here's the thing.
And NBC News.
There's the difference between media in the Middle East and media here. The media is like, hey, we do the news, but then they're gonna bury it. They're gonna bury it in line 286 in the article. They're gonna play it once on television. They're not gonna like pressure on it, but then the rest of it, Israel, Arabs are terrorists. It is like this is the thing. It's like, hey, we don't hide the news, yes, but you bury it.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, I got to make one quick clarification. I'm blind, so I misread one of the graphics. So when I said that the organization Oorah allocated $437,000 to the Middle East outreach, transferred $16.5 million to North Africa, not North America, North Africa and the Middle East. So I just want to make that clarification.
And a different $16.5 million to Israel.
Yeah.
So hey, look, it's not just Israel, it's also going to Orthodox Jews in North Africa. Just like the ad said, right?
Thanks, God.
This is cars for North African Orthodox Jews. No. Anyways, look, to your point, Bassem, right now, the Massey election's happening. The Israeli supporters gave $16 million to defeat Tom Massey. And it's not like they don't cover it. They do. They say, hey, 16 million, some from Paul Singer, some from Miriam Adelson. But do they say this election is a referendum on whether Israel is going to control our Congress? They would never say that, even though it is patently obvious. And by the way, if you ask those reporters off camera, is this so that the Israeli lobby can control Congress? Because from then on, every Republican would vote with Israel no matter what. They will say, well, of course, that's definitely what's gonna happen. If Massey loses, every Republican will vote with Israel, until the next election, for sure, at a bare minimum. Have you ever written that? No, I would never write that, never. And you know what they'll do? Right after the election, they'll have collective amnesia. And the next time a funding bill comes up for Israel, or a funding bill comes up for a war that Israel wants, they'll be like, no, Israel doesn't control Congress at all. It has nothing to do with it.
It's anti-Semitic.
Everybody's an anti-Semite. A whole country's an anti-Semite. The problem isn't with liars. The problem, like Kars4Kids or Israel as a country doing this genocide, etc. The problem was with anyone accurately reporting it. So as Bassem was saying, their mainstream media, we're not saying it, mainstream media seems to be saying collectively, the truth is anti-Semitic.
Yes, they're Zionist owned. We need to stop being surprised by it. They're Zionist owned and they will toe the Zionist line. That is what will happen.
One more thing.
You're being lied to and your money is being sent to Israel instead of poor children in the United States. Good, that's what we want. Okay.
You know how they shame Middle Eastern countries, like you have state-run media. You have state-run media. Here we have state-run media, but it's for a different state.
Yeah, it's a different state.
For a different state.
It's ridiculous.
Oh my God, the North Koreans have to be thinking, they're so embarrassed. They're like, now that's propaganda. In America, where they get you to believe that the warmongering terrorists are the victims doing self-defense, and the people who are being occupied, oppressed, and slaughtered are the terrorists.
Yeah.
The North Koreans are like, wow, hats off, man. Nice job. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.